All right. Completely ignore all this. This is crazy. I need a thick brush run through that. Anyway, I'm not cutting any of that out. Welcome to another video ostensibly about writing. I think I used that word right. Pantsers versus plotters. It's the age old argument as writers, right? Are you doing an outline? Are you winging it? Do you fall maybe somewhere in between? A lot of writers I know they're like, I do a little bit of an outline, but then I ignore it and I just write whatever. I get it. Um, Almost 40 years in this business, 15 now as a full time writer. And in that time, I have tried both ways, everything in between, just anything I could try to use to get an edge on writing and writing more and more and more. Okay, that's the idea, to write better, to write more, to make some money. And I always thought of a little baseball analogy for you. I'm a Red Sox fan. I'm just that. Cal Ripken Jr. of Baltimore Orioles. Dude played in a billion games. One of the greatest players ever. If you look at his batting stances over the years, it's like almost he would change them within the game. Okay, he didn't have that. You have certain baseball players, and you look and you're like, if you saw a silhouette of their batting stance, you would immediately go, "That's Ken Griffey Jr. That's Barry Bonds. That's Babe Ruth. Whatever." Cal Ripken Jr. like 4,000 different batting stances in his career, probably, but he got hits. You know what I'm saying? He did what felt right, and that's kind of the thing. So there's no one catch-all. Hey, you got to do it this way. Hey, if you're writing an outline, you're going to write a million books. Hey, if you're just winging it and not doing any thinking or research or whatever, you're gonna. It doesn't work that way. It's an individual thing. Every writer, it's almost like we all have different fingerprints. I know that's going to be a crazy concept for some people, that not everybody has the same fingerprints. It's kind of the same way with writing, the way you approach this as a career or as a hobby, whatever. For me, for the longest time now, I've done pantser. I'm total pantser. I don't like plotting out ahead of time where this thing is going. Now, that's not to say, I think one of the things that people automatically think is that as a pantser, you just sit down, you just start writing, and then you're not thinking 5 minutes ahead. You're not thinking of anything other than what this next line is going to be, next line, next week. And that's not necessarily true. There are things as I'm writing, I'm like, oh, this means this character has to do this at some point. Or this means I see this building to a conflict between these two people or whatever. And so I keep those things in mind as I'm writing those stories. I might even make a note in a chapter coming up. I might be writing chapter 8, and I'm like, you know what? In chapter 10 or 12, I'm going to get back to this character's point of view, and then this has got to happen. And then I'll drop down a couple of chapters. I'll mark it, and I'll just write Bob and Bill have their fight. That's it. I don't necessarily know if that's plotting or if it's, hey, I know another scene that's coming up. I guess you can argue that I'm plotting ahead. I'll do that a few times in a book. Um, there are authors that I will talk to that will legitimately, they might not outline an entire story, but they are definitely going to, they know the last chapter. There's writers that they know what the last chapter is. Okay. They know, here I have my characters. I have an idea of where we're to start, but I know where this thing's going to end already. I just have to get to that place. That, for me, that's not fulfilling as a writer. I don't want to know where it's going. I want to just literally write off the seat of my pants. and get to that place organically in my mind as a reader as I'm writing a story that I want to read. So for me, that's kind of the fun of it. The fun of it is I don't know where this thing is going. I have an idea at some point. I know which character or characters need to be there at the end. I might at some point, maybe after I'm done with, like, say, the first act of something, I might go, you know what? I think I know where this is going. I know what the probable ending of this should be. I know what the cliche ending of this would be. So let me try to figure out some kind of twist, some kind of aha moment in this, you know? And so that's the fun of writing. For me, that's the fun. Do I paint myself into corners? Of course I do. Of course I do. A lot of times I will walk away from a story because I have no idea where it's going. Sometimes I'll back up a little bit, change something to move it along in another way that you really didn't see coming. Hopefully the reader will look at it and go, "Oh, I didn't see that coming." That's that's always the challenge. Um, and to write a good story, to write good characters that people want to take ownership of as a reader. They want to see a little bit of themselves in those characters or somebody that they know, or think, what would I do in this situation? You want questions to be asked. As a writer, you want people to question things. So I gotta get a sip of coffee. So that's kind of, for me. For me, it starts out with, I don't want to do outlines. I've done outlines. I've talked about this when I did movie uh, books, and I had to have this outline, and automatically I hate the story. Automatically, I don't want to write this thing because I just wrote it. I just did an outline. I just did 9-page outline of this story. I don't want to write this story now. The story's written. The story's done. Now you got to fill it in. You got to flesh it out over 40, 50,000 words, whatever they're asking for. So for me, writing like that, that's a bummer. I just want to go. I have characters. I have an opening line. Let's just go. Let's just see where this thing takes me. Whether it's a flash fiction piece, a short story, a novella, a novel, it doesn't matter. Whether I'm writing an entire series, I want that first opening line, and I just want to run with it. That's all I'm looking for. As a writer, that's all I'm looking for, and that keeps me going. So, and I think, hey, it's worked out. Listen, I've written literally hundreds of stories. Okay. Are all of them good? Heck no. Stuff I wrote in the 90s is just, for me, it's absolute garbage. I don't want to ever revisit 99% of that stuff. But there were some good ideas there. There were characters there that I thought, if I was a better writer in my 20s, I could have made into some good characters that people wanted to read. There was some good plots there that, hey, over the years I've cannibalized some of that stuff. And maybe not where I've like, hey, let me go through a box and find an old story and then reuse something. I would remember stuff, ideas and characters that I wrote before, and I would like, you know what, let me use this again. This stuff has never seen the light of day, but let me write it better now. Let me write this stuff where it makes sense. Let me write this stuff where people are going to enjoy it more than they did 30 years ago. Because I'm a much better writer than I was 30 years ago. I would hope. That is the goal, right? The goal is to be a better writer. So, and again, there's nothing again, Armand's opinion. There's nothing wrong if you have to have an outline, if you have to plot, if you are a plotter. If you could do it and it works for you, then kudos to you. That's awesome. That's awesome. Because you can be organized. You can get your thoughts down into an outline. And there's guys that I know and a woman who are plotters. And literally, it was like, yeah, it took me like 3 days, and I wrote the entire outline for this book. From just having the idea to figuring it out. Okay, what comes next? What comes next? What comes next? What comes next? And they're not adhering 100% to that outline. They're not like married to that outline where, well, this is a better idea, but now I already have this written down on page 3 of my outline, so I got to go with this idea. No, they move things around. Sometimes you're completely different from where you are, and 100% I get that. That's cool. As a pantser, I will get to a point where I'm like, you know what? I know how this has to end, and then it never ends that way. It's always a completely different turn of events. And again, nothing wrong with that. You want to write the best story you can without the limitations of, here are the writing rules, here are the pantser and plotter rules, here is the rules for being an outliner, here's the rules that you can't outline at all. I can't put notes in future chapters because that's cheating. That's a hybrid of pantsing and plotting, and who cares? You write the way you want to write. You do what you have to do. All rules are made to be broken if it makes sense. And I've read books over the years where that does not make sense. You're writing stuff, and I'm like, none of this makes sense. None of this. You're breaking rules just to break rules because you think you're being cool, and you're not. This book is awful. These stories are awful. I get it. The converse of that is The Road, Cormac McCarthy. There are no dialogue tags in that book at all. And I know a buddy of mine, when he first read or started to read, he's like, I can't read this. This is dumb. I don't like this at all. And I was like, give me the book. Let me read. Let me see what you're talking about. And I loved it because it broke rules, but it broke rules and it made sense of why those rules were broken. And I think it made for a better read. Once you get into the nuances of the story, I'm like, I think this was a brilliant idea. I like this. I'm glad he didn't just write a typical book. And an author like that can do whatever he wants. You get to a point, some authors are like, they can do whatever they want. And again, as I like to say, kudos to them. Okay, there's no story has to be this length. The characters have to do this. Characters have to do that. Here's your 3 acts, and we're going to write this like a Hallmark movie. Here's your plot. Here's your specific beats you have to have at these specific times. Blah 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 blah. Now, having written so many stories, indubitably, my stories will have those 3 acts. My stories will have those beats because I've written so much, because I understand fiction, because I've read so much, and I get that these are the things that a good story needs. Okay. It's kind of like writing a song. Okay. It doesn't matter if it's a 3-minute song, a 5-minute song, or it's a 20-minute Iron Maiden song. There's still a structure there. There's still verses and choruses and bridges and solos and on and on and on that the song has to have. But it's not, here's this cookie cutter, here's a 3-minute song, boom, 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 boom. We're just going to release the same song over and over and over and over and over. You play within that structure, and that's writing. Writing is you're playing within that structure. I enjoy writing short stories for my Patreon page. Stories I know I wouldn't likely be able to sell to a market somewhere because they're weird, or they're me playing with different tropes, different characters, weird dialogue, no dialogue, whatever. And I enjoy writing those stories for me, and then hopefully people who read them on my Patreon will read and go, hey, you know what? That's pretty good. That's different. I like that. I like that short story. That short story is different. So for me, that's kind of the thing. So I don't know if there's anything else I really need to touch on. I just, if you are a writer, just write. Don't worry about all this other stuff. Don't worry about whether it's, oh, I got to do an outline, or oh, I got this idea, but maybe I just want to sit down and just start writing. There's no rule, definitive rule that says you have to start with the first line of your story either. Sometimes I get a scene in my head. I get a really cool scene in my head, and I'm like, you know what? Let me just start from here. Let me just start here and work forwards and backwards from this spot. And a lot of times that's my opening anyway. A lot of times, you what's the rule? You start 2/3 of the way into your story. You don't want to write a story where the guy wakes up in bed, the alarm clock goes off. You don't want where he, gets up and makes his coffee, goes to the bathroom, brushes his teeth, watches the weather to see what happens. He walks outside of his house. He hears a gunshot and he realizes he's hit. Start from the gunshot. Start from the action. Start from the important stuff. Nobody cares if the guy brushed his teeth or not. Nobody cares he had a cup of coffee. You want to get into the story. And how do you do that? By just sitting down and writing. For me, it's just sitting down and writing. In my mind, as I'm thinking that opening for the story, I will go, okay, I want the guy to walk out of his front door and get shot. So we're going to assume, the reader's going to assume, me as a writer, I'm going to assume that, yeah, he's already gotten up and he's gone to the bathroom. The alarm went off. He turned it off. Said hi to his wife. Here's a little in the weeds aside. I'm not cutting. I've seen so many shows, and lately a lot, where two people are in bed and they wake up in the morning and roll over and kiss each other. She got her full makeup. His hair is perfect. That's not real life. Don't do that. Don't do that in your books. Stop doing that in TV shows. The worst thing you want to do is hit somebody with your dragon breath and have their dragon breath come back on you. So don't do any of that at all. Anyway, we're going to assume all that mundane, normal, everyday life stuff is done when he opens the door and walks outside and gets shot. Because at that point, then, as a reader, you want to know, well, who is this guy? What did he do to get shot? There's the beginning of your story. But a lot of writers, a lot of newer writers, and this was me almost 40 years ago, I would start that with the alarm clock going off. The alarm clock goes off. He wakes up. Oh, it sounds like thunder. Oh, it's going to rain outside. Kiss my wife. Hey, she's like, I'll make coffee while you take a shower. He thinks of his day as he's in the shower. And it's like, I don't know, like 5,000 words I've written. And this guy's literally had some buttered toast and some coffee. The other thing that drives me nuts in TV shows is mom gets up in the morning and she makes this full spread of breakfast. French toast, scrambled eggs, bacon, grits, whatever. And then the kids come running downstairs with their ready for school. They're late to catch the bus, and then they grab a piece of toast and run out the door. And then the husband just sits there reading his newspaper, drinking a cup of coffee. Who's eating all this food? Why are we wasting all this money? I'm not cutting that either. So in your story, get to the good part. Isn't that the rule? Don't write the boring parts. Your story opens where that guy walks out that door and gets shot. Why? I have no idea. I'm a pantser. I have no idea who this guy is, what he's done. All I know is somebody shot him. Did they kill him? We don't know. I got to figure that out as a writer. I got to figure out, did this guy die? Is this guy just wounded? Is this our main character? Or is this just an opening? Somebody gets shot we do like a Law and Order episode. Guy gets shot, and then the main characters come walking in and give you some snappy comments and answers. We don't know. We don't know. For me, I want to know. As a writer, I want to know. And I think if I had sat down ahead of time and said, okay, this is a guy and he gets shot because of this, and this is the reason, and then we have this character's trying to figure out why he gets shot, and then I plot this whole thing out. At the end of that, I'm going to do however many 10 pages, and I'm going to go, that's a pretty good story. I don't want to write that story now because I just wrote that story. I literally just outlined and wrote that story, so I don't want to fill in all the missing pieces. I don't want to do the dialogue. I don't want this stuff on this anymore. I don't care anymore. Next story. And I could probably write 1 billion of those, but I don't want to. I want to figure out, as I'm doing the laundry, as I'm cooking my lunch, as I'm doing whatever, thinking, what happens next? What can I add to this story? So that's for me, that's what being a pantser is. Let me know your writing style, and let me know if it has changed over the years. Or let me know if you're thinking of doing it a different way. Also, thanks for hitting the subscribe button. I really appreciate it. I appreciate you watching all these videos, all my writing videos, all my book review, movie review, TV series reviews, all of my when I go on YouTube Live, three or more days a week. I appreciate you watching those, either live at noon Eastern Standard Time or later on at night. And again, any questions or any comments, any concerns? I'm always looking for more writing questions for this YouTube channel. So if you have any, just drop them down in the comments, and I will make a video of it. I will get to it. Thank you. I appreciate everybody and all of your comments and all of it. I appreciate everything.